Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Julius Rosenwald called them monuments to the well-being of mankind, and his foundation built more than 5,000 of them across the South and border states. They're called Rosenwald Schools, and one of them is still standing near Paducah, and my guests today hope to restore it, perhaps make a park out of it. They are Manuel Jones and Betty Dobson, both of Paducah.
Yes.
Betty's been on before and knows a little bit about historic preservation. Yes. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us about this, and again, we had talked earlier about the Rosenwald Schools.
Yes, sir.
There is one preserved in Logan County on the campus of Logan County High School, but that one had been moved there.
Yes,
yours would be unique because you all want to restore it where it sits right now.
That's correct, sir.
Now, you have a personal stake in this because you attended that school.
I did, sir.
Who was your teacher?
Mrs. Rogers, Alice C. Rogers.
And what was she like?
Real nice. Yeah, as I remember her. And that was part of the reason why I want to restore it, is a tribute to her.
Now, the school is located on Roosevelt Road.
Roosevelt Street there.
Roosevelt Street,
Yes,
which
sir.
is near the South Railroad Yards.
Yes, sir.
So how did you decide, I want to restore this old building?
Because living in the county, young person in the county, we did not have parks to attend to. Therefore, we needed playgrounds to play other than on your country fields and property. So we always wanted to keep those playgrounds that we use for the school for other neighborhood children to play ball and have those activities out there.
Of course, this was during segregation days when Paducah
sir.
parks were segregated.
Yes.
And schools were segregated.
Yes, sir.
And so this was sort of a community center.
It is. It has been. It was used as a church also.
Wow, wow. Built in 1928.
Yes, sir.
And was open as a school until 1966.
Yes, sir.
And we do have some images of the school made of wood.
Yes.
So what does it look like now?
It's not in very good condition presently. However, it's enough of it, the original structure, worth restoring, and we intend to do that, with all efforts possible.
Now, you started a nonprofit organization to do this.
Yes, sir.
And you enlisted Betty because
Yes,
she has some experience.
Yes, I have.
With the Hotel Metropolitan. So give us the step-by-step process of how one, well, for example, how you went from the Metropolitan to this wonderful structure it is today. So what do you all need to do for the Union Station School?
Raise a lot of money.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is always the case.
Yes.
Always the case, but I think public awareness is one of the first steps, is to get that support, and then the other things will all fall in place.
Well, I think the public awareness is absolutely correct, because I confess I didn't know this building was there. And I mean, again, the public awareness part. Well, now you've done some research into the history of the school. Tell us a little bit of what you discovered about it.
Well, particularly how the school was built. It was considered to be state of the art at the time when it was built. And Tuskegee engineers and designers of it, that's how they designed all of their structures.
From the Tuskegee Institute?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Under Mr. Booker T. Washington.
Right, right.
But those plans that they used were state of the art. In particular, they laid the schools out on the compass. They had to be where the sun comes up in the east, say it rises in the east, and the sunlight would shine through the windows and give the students a better view to read their textbooks. That was very important. I considered that to be enlightening, and also very unique about the engineers' concept of building a building like that.
Wow, of course it had the big windows which let the light in. Well, when it was built in 1928, when it opened, did it have electricity?
No, sir, it did not have electricity.
So that's where the light would...
That's where the requirements back then, those times.
Would come in.
Do
you know the approximate dimensions of the school?
It's approximately 23 feet, I think about maybe 24 feet. It's almost a square structure. It's not quite square, but those are probably the dimensions on it. And they're on the floor plans that we have here on for the project.
Right.
That are listed.
We've seen some of the classroom itself. Did it have heat?
Well, it had a wooden stove structure there in it, and it was over in the southeast corner of the building, and we would have to fire it up every morning to, on the cold mornings. But
right.
the school was built quite well, so it didn't really need too much heat. So
right. Obviously, the desks are long gone from the school.
Yes, sir, they're.
I'm guessing the stove, you could see the flue there.
Yeah,
on
they're
the
not there.
They're. So you would have to find maybe a stove of that type.
Right, sir, we would.
And then, of course, the desk would be, you could probably do that as well.
We hope to do that also.
Yeah, yeah. And you went to the school. What grade were you in when you went there? It's an elementary school?
We went through the first through the 8th grade, sir.
Through the 8th grade, so it's actually would have been a junior high.
It was considered the grade schools in the county were just called grade schools.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fascinating. Did you know about this place? Mm-hmm. You did? Mm-hmm. But you didn't go to school there?
No.
Yeah, because you're from
Lyon County.
I thought you were from Lyon County there. So what are you all doing for public awareness besides being on this program? Do you have a campaign for public publicity?
Well, we have an exhibit set up in the Hotel Metropolitan.
Right. Yes.
And as today, we're having a fish fry, and Dr.
John Robertson
is speaking, and so hopefully the folks that are there today will go into that particular area, look at that exhibit, and take that with them, that this is a project, and start the buzz that we need help in order to save the building.
What kind of money are we talking about approximately?
Well, presently, the first step is to get a deposit toward Mr. Lund, who owns the property. The property's in Mr. Kevin Lund, Thomas Lund's son name, and that he's requiring us to give him $7,000 deposit, and then we can take control of the property. The title of it will be changed to Union Station School Historic Park, and then the public can restore the building and bring it into its fruition.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of hard to say, even if you had, when we started the hotel, they told us, you get $250,000, you can restore the hotel completely. Well, $850,000 later, we got the hotel restored. So even if you have a so-called starting point, it's really, it may not be the number that you would actually need. I think one thing that Mr. Jones had spoke about is that maybe we could enlist the help of the community with trade, people who have trade that would be able to come and assist with the construction. And that was really helpful in completing the Hotel Metropolitan project, is that we made an appeal to local craftsmen, and they came in and they finished up the project. Whereas when you're bidding out a project and you get a large company to come in, they do bring in a lot of people to complete the objective, but there's a lot of money going out, and you may see this much work instead of this much work.
But I think too, if you were a carpenter, I think it'd be fun to work on a project being an old building, because techniques and materials are totally different now than they were, to put this thing together, and to be able to hunt up and define the particular types of boards that were cut in those days, and the big windows. I lived down in Mayfield, and one of the schools that they moved, there was a school, a one-room school, they moved to the campus of Graves County High School.
Yes. And
they were working on it, and they had to have special windows for it and all that. But I'm sure that was fun to work on like that. But again, what I think what you all can really stress is this Rosenwald School in Logan County is said to be the only restored Rosenwald School in Kentucky. But the fact that if you all could do this, you would have the only one restored at its original site. And I would think that would be a big plus. Now, you contacted what state agency to start this ball rolling?
The Kentucky Heritage Council.
And what did they say to you?
They said they were not aware at the time that Rosenwald Union Station was still standing, and since it was, they would embrace the project, and they've done so.
Good, good. But again, the initial is the $7,000 to purchase the property.
Yes, so to get it control of the property, the title would be changed from into Union Station School
Right.
Historic Park,
Right,
and then we
right.
can start the restoration on it. We'll need considerable amount of funds beyond that to do it.
Right, of course.
Do it.
Of course.
And we have in process presently working on a tax exempt paper
Right.
that will get the contractor to
Right.
give an estimate on the property. And
Now, you mentioned before there were other Rosenwald schools in McCracken County,
yes, sir.
and what were they?
They were Sanders, Granville, and Woodlawn, and Union Station.
And where were the other schools? Sanders, where was that originally?
It was over near the Armory near Park Boulevard.
Oh, the National Guard headquarters?
sir.
Over that by near Noble Park.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If that street is given, if you pull up the schools in McCracken County, the Rosenwald schools, that address is listed. And there's also, of course, Woodlawn behind, it would be west of Lone Oak. In Granville, I'm not sure about the actual address of it, but it possibly would come up too in our research as we do this on the schools.
Now, these schools, from what I gathered, were rural schools. They weren't built in cities. They
No,
were
sir.
built in rural areas.
In the county,
Right, right, right.
all county schools.
Yeah, yeah. And again, Dr. Alistine Turley, who has been here before
yes.
at the University of Louisville, has done some research on this, and I talked to her, and she said there were 152 in Kentucky. And what's interesting is Logan County had 9 of them, which is one of the larger counties. And again, they go back to the days of segregation, when education in Kentucky was separate and unequal, that white schools got a whole lot more money than African American schools did. Most counties in Kentucky had K through 12, but you think in the Jackson Purchase, there were only, well, African American high schools in Paducah, Lincoln, Mayfield, Dunbar, there was Attucks in Murray, and there was a high school in Hickman. I don't know the name of that one, but in the entire Purchase region, there were only 4 high schools for African Americans. That it was usually it stopped at the 8th grade, and so Rosenwald, who was with Sears, you said he succeeded
He was
Mr. Sears, Richard Sears,
yes, the CEO of Sears.
and he took it upon himself to start this foundation to build these schools, and they were built all over the South and border states.
He was contacted by Mr. Booker T. Washington of Tuskegee Institute
Right.
to help build the schools that were lacking in the South after the Civil War. There were most of the schools didn't exist, especially for minorities.
Exactly.
So they-
Well, you know, one thing just occurred to me is Reverend Dennis Anderson, who started what is now part of this school, was a very close friend of Booker T. Washington, and he sort of modeled West Kentucky Tech on the Tuskegee Institute. Do you know if maybe students from there built this school or had anything to do with it? That'd be interesting to find out.
That's part of the research we intend to do.
But it's 1928, and I know they had a pretty large carpentry program there,
did.
and that's the sort of thing students could maybe, that'd be a fascinating connection to tie in there, because there in the record he is definitely a friend of Booker T. Washington. Of course, he started that school in 1909,
I see.
and so that would be really interesting to delve into that. So, how about former students? Have they come forward to help you out on this?
They've embraced the project, but of course the funds.
Yeah, that's always the thing.
It's
You
always
got to
a
keep coming
problem
back
for
to
the
that.
funding.
But you know, you could do such a wonderful program of reminiscences of people talking about what it was like to go to school there. And well, what was it? You were in the first grade. You
Through the 8th
go to
grade.
school. So what was the school day like for like a first or second
Well,
grade?
I was a youngster at that time, so I thought it was a wonderful place to go to school. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And I'm assuming back then you brought your own lunch.
well, sometimes, but they had a little kitchen. There was a kitchen area in there where they did prepare some meals. Yes.
Oh, they did.
Yes, sir.
Like a wood stove.
Yes, it was, of course.
Mm-hmm. And that would, of course, have to be put back in.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. And what do you remember the subjects that you studied? And of course, you used to call it the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yes,
you know.
those were the subjects. Of course, we took English, of course.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All of it. And the one thing. I believe you told me you have a list of all the teachers who were there at the school, or as many as you know.
The last one was intended to dedicate the project to was Mrs. Alice C. Rogers, but Mrs. Ellie Peoples, who was a substitute teacher at Woodlawn, she also attended the school there, and so she said there were other teachers that taught there, and I have a list of the names. You know, it's in some of the papers I have,
Mm-hmm.
but there was at least a half dozen other teachers that taught there.
Mm-hmm. Well, do they have descendants living in Paducah that you could contact?
Well, I haven't reached them yet, but they
Yeah.
possibly do. You know, but
Yeah.
just,
Well, I think as the word spreads of this, that you'll find some people jumping on board with this, because again, if the money were there, you had plenty of money, what would you like to see the ultimate? What would the project would end as what?
it would be a Kentucky State Park with its centerpiece of the Rosenwald structure, and then the community could use it for teaching classes to students that need extra instruction, which could come under the Board of Education of Paducah, McCracken County, and West Kentucky Community College Technical School. If they embrace it, they could also hold classes there, and how the school was built and included in their building plans for structures that the
You
West
could do
Kentucky
a really nice living history program where you could show people today about one-room schools, because, gosh, I'm 61, and of course I went to school in Mayfield, in the town, but a one-room school, that was such a part of rural America for so long, and I think that'd be a great program you could do. Now, in terms of the area around it, how many, is it an acre, that much, or?
The original site was part of a 2-acre site that was required of the Julius Rosenwald schools in the county. And the lot parcels 3, 24 of the 2 lots for the school building is on parcel 24. It sits, presently in process of purchasing that from Mr. Lund, Kevin Lund. So eventually we want to acquire the rest of the 2 acres and other properties around it. It's the community desires to increase the size of the park. And then that way the whole community will have not only a county park, a state park, even a national park if they so desire.
Now, when you were going to school there, was it a big open playground, or were there trees? Or?
Well, we used all the property, particularly across the street from it on the west side, was used for playgrounds for playing ball and outdoor activities.
And there
It was
again,
an open field.
right, an open field like that. And there's another view of the school there as you hope to get it done. Well, I really believe that once the word spreads about this, that and I don't think you're going to need that kind of money. $850,000.
Oh,
It's
no.
going to be considerably,
I don't
yeah,
think we'll
it's
need
going to
that
be
much.
considerably less than that.
Considerably.
But still, these things that, again, when you get involved in old buildings, you don't know what you've gotten in there, and if there is serious structural damage, and of course an engineer would have to study that, it's going to end up costing you more than you thought.
And those studies, those kind of things that you're just talking about there, bringing in an engineer, just consulting with different avenues as to different options
Yes.
that are available to you. All of that it can, just overwhelm you at a point.
It's money and time consuming.
Yes, it is. And Mr. Jones has put in a lot of time, a lot of effort on the project. So we're really grateful that you're giving us this opportunity to reach out to the public, to tell them about the project, and hopefully get them excited about it.
Well, as I said before the program, I mean, Betty was the the one person who got the Hotel Metropolitan going, and that's what can happen with one person.
Yes.
Will take the bit and go with it. That you really get the bit between your teeth and go with it. You can get this done, because once the word gets out, then people are going, wow, I didn't know that was there. That's a really interesting idea, you know, and you do that.
Yes.
And that's happened in so many cases. And speaking also of other things, the time we have left, the 8th United States Heavy Artillery, parentheses colored, is going to get a historical marker.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
Well, after some exposure, again, thank you.
Always glad to help.
And you have. We have raised the money needed to erect the monument or the marker, and it's going to be, you know, I really don't know the address. It's next to the Julian Carroll Convention Center parking lot.
Right.
That was the original encampment
For Fort
the,
Anderson was. Yeah.
for the black soldiers,
Right,
actually.
right.
Yes.
The tent city. So we're really excited that we
Oh,
can,
wow. Yeah.
you know, put this marker where these men actually
Yes.
were
That's
stationed.
That's
you know,
terrific. Yeah. And that'll be October the
22nd.
October 26th. Are you going to have a formal unveiling or
Yes.
ceremony down there?
It'll be at 11 o'clock. And they told us that Senator Yance, I believe.
Brent Yance. Yes, I know Brent. He's
He's
from
gonna-
Muhlenberg County,
Yes.
Greenville. So he'll be doing it.
Yes, he's going to come down to make sure that we do things right. And so we're
He's
really...
a pretty reasonable fellow. He's actually a state representative, Yance. In fact, I was a freshman at Murray State in an astronomy class with him. Had no idea who would grow up to be a state representative. He's a really terrific fellow and nice guy. So he'll well, that'll be
Yeah.
wonderful.
We're excited.
Any like reenactors? You going to have any of that?
Yes, and we're going to fire cannons
Oh my
at
goodness.
at the unveiling, and there will be a short skit about a gentleman who finds his way going to Paducah to enlist in with the regiment. So
There is a program called the Kentucky Chautauqua program where people reenact historical characters. And there is a fella who does.
Robert Bell.
That may be. He's a cavalry sergeant. In fact, and that's terrible, I should know his name, but on the cover of the Humanities magazine,
He'll be there.
that's him. That's it. He's very good. He is very good. But so that'll be great. He'll be
Yeah.
wonderful to do
Yeah,
that.
he's going to come.
And of course, this is very timely with the 150th anniversary of the Civil War observance beginning now. And so, but this will be one of those State Historical Society markers. And that would be nice too, to go with this school. Because a lot of historic buildings have these markers in front of them, which really draws your attention. They're really nice plaques. The state highway department puts them up. The Historical Society does them to do that. And well, that's terrific.
Maybe later we'll get one for the hotel. And
Yes.
it was just that they are so deserving. This particular regiment, not a lot of people know about
No,
it.
they're
and,
not.
So, you know, we're hoping that we can open people's eyes to the fact that the United States was, you know, a melting pot.
And these,
you know, that we tend to forget that at times.
And these men fought for their own freedom.
Right,
They were
and their
ex-slaves.
families.
And their families who came to Paducah to serve in that regiment. Absolutely, it's a really compelling story. And again, African American soldiers were pretty much forgotten after the Civil War, as well as later wars. In fact, in the public library here, there is a 2-volume set of Kentucky Union troops in the Civil War. The black troops are in the back of the book, which is very symbolic. World War I, there is a book in the public library about African American soldiers in the First World War. They're segregated in the back of the book. It's almost like back of the bus, back of the book. It's there. And these regiments weren't well known at all. And it's a really compelling story. And then you connect it with the flood wall, which is the the painting of that Fort Anderson, this earthen fort there, is that's a great story. Were you able to determine anybody in Paducah who had ancestors who fought there?
My husband.
Really?
Dobson, yeah.
Wow.
In fact, there's a lot of families that are still, their names are on the roster that probably don't even know they're descendants of the men that fought here. They may not even know why they're here in Paducah. But my husband's family came from Smithland. And then I learned also in my research that Smithland had a fort there that I wasn't aware of.
They did. And another to tie into this, Columbus, Kentucky, was the second largest African American recruiting point in Kentucky. There was a Camp Nelson over in it's in Jessamine County, and they have done a really good job of restoring that. That's the Camp Nelson Foundation. I get literature from them all the time. In fact, the gentleman's coming. He does a lot of things there. He may be from that area. It's in Jessamine County, it's near Nicholasville, Kentucky. But there's a real tie into that. And again, I think it's particularly timely with the Civil War 150th anniversary coming up to tie into that. That'll be a wonderful project. In the meantime, in the time we have left, if someone wanted to contact you all,
Yes.
Can you give us some contact numbers, emails, or whatever?
The contact for Union Station is unionstationschool@yahoo.com. And if they want to send contributions, you can send them to Union Station School, Historic Park in McCracken County, Kentucky, at Post Office Box 416.
And how about a telephone number?
Telephone number, you can call my number. It's, of course, 270-554-1686.
And I could also contact you.
Contact me. My number is 443-7918.
Or they could drop by the Hotel Metropolitan.
Right.
Yes, please.
What are the current opening hours of the Metropolitan?
The hotel is open by appointments. You know,
Right.
you give me a call and I'll meet you. You can tell me if you want Maggie to come. We have characters that'll show up, and we have, and if we know in advance, maybe we can tell our visitors. We have visitors at the hotel. The ghost.
Oh yeah, that's
I mean,
great stuff.
it's really kind of eerie. We had the ghost hunters to come by, and they documented that
really?
we have yes, residual steps that happen every night at 8:30, and so, and we've had a lot of unusual goings on.
Well, we'll have to make, we're out of time. We'll have to make another program about that.
Yeah.
I'm being said we're out of time. So
Okay.
thank you all for coming. My guest today was
Yes.
Manuel Jones and Betty Dobson.
Yes.
I'm Barry Craig. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.